Isekais are becoming more and more popular as every anime season passes, as well there is a very real allure of leaving behind your boring and often depressing life to travel to a new fantastical world of infinite possibilities. And considering how many isekai anime there is sure to be some masterpieces, but also some trash. And having watched a wide variety of both great and awful isekai anime, I feel a duty to make this video and explain what makes an isekai good and what makes one bad. In this video I will mainly be discussing Konosuba Overlord and that time I reincarnated as a slime for what makes a good isekai, and Wise Man's Grandchild and 8th Son Are You Kidding Me for what makes a bad isekai, so minor plot spoilers for all these shows will follow, and I will obviously reference other isekais as well throughout the video. If at any point during the video you find yourself entertained, then consider liking or subscribing, as you can't understand how much such a small action can do for this channel. Anyway, on with the video. Isekai, literally translating as other world, is a genre in which someone from the real world is transported to, reincarnated in, or is otherwise moved to a new world, often fantasy based and usually including magic, harems and adventure guilds, though an isekai doesn't need these aspects inherently. And like all genres, it has its tropes, and that's why I want to start this video with tropes. Tropes are not inherently a bad thing, there is a reason they are tropes after all. For example, it is a trope in Battle Shonen for mental characters to die. Why? Because it gets a strong emotional response out of both the reader and the protagonist of the story. So what tropes does isekai have? A lot, but I will pick out a few key ones and show how they are done in a generic isekai and then how they are done in a great isekai. Parties/guilds are a staple of isekais, where a range of characters each with different and complementing skills work together. The main reason this trope can be bad is that the roles that these characters fill doesn't change much between animes, so it can feel repetitive if you have watched a lot of isekais. In 8th Son Are You Kidding Me, for example, the party has the capable leader, a spear person, a martial artist, a sword guy, a priest, and a girl with a big axe. And Louise and Wilma are probably the only characters here who have any kind of personality outside their roles in the party. And since most isekai parties have these specific roles, it means the characters in 8th Son do not stand out outside of their show, as unlike characters in good isekai, they don't have characters beyond their roles or classes. However, how does a god tier isekai handle this? Well, for that let's turn to Konosuba. Now at first Konosuba seems to have the same problem. There is a capable leader, a mage, a priest and a frontline fighter. But this is Konosuba, so it really isn't that simple. Kazuma is a capable leader, yes, but he is unbelievably weak, and as a result is petty and crafty in his leadership to the point of almost villainry. Megumin is OP as all hell, but she can only use magic once a day and is useless once she has expended her one spell, which is so powerful it cannot be used at close range, making it only useful for taking out large enemies from afar. Aqua is a priest, but despite having broken healing and buffing spells is so utterly useless that this all accounts for squat. And Darkness, despite being a frontline fighter, can never hit anything with her sword. As shown multiple times in the light novel, if even one member of the party is missing, they can't accomplish anything and cease to function as a party. As they are all individually useless and only work well together, when Darkness acts as a meat shield, Aqua buffs everyone, Megumin kills everything with an explosion, and Kazuma keeps them all in check. Konosuba takes the idea of hyper-specialised parties and runs with it to a comedic extent, so yes, that is how a top tier isekai handles the trope of parties. Next trope is being rich, and this may not come to many people's heads, but it is something that happens a lot. For example, in Re:Zero, Subaru lives in a mansion, in Overlord Ainz lives in a massive underground tomb, and in Konosuba, Kazuma and the lot live in a mansion as well. However, all of these work as well. 1. Subaru is so honest he works in the mansion to earn his keep, even though he could stay as a guest, reflecting his nature and character. Ainz is well from grinding in an MMO and using pay-to-win tactics, and Kazuma and the lot only got their mansion as it was haunted by ghosts, and well, one of their biggest issues throughout the series is being in debt, which happens a lot in both the anime and the light novel. However, in something like 8th Son Are You Kidding Me, Well beats a dragon and then just gets rich and lives in a mansion. Literally, that's it. No other hardship. He just effortlessly beats a dragon and then he's rich, and also a noble. And in Wise Man's Grandson, Shin is rich because, as he is the grandson of Merlin, again, big whoop. In both these examples, the protagonist gaining wealth or living in a mansion is not explained by comedic means or in any way important to the plot or the world, which on paper doesn't seem that big a deal. However, considering how bloated the isekai genre is, a show cannot simply be generic in terms of tropes, or they will just fall by the wayside and not stand out in the slightest. Next trope is the truck, by which I mean how the protagonist is isekai'd, something my friend and fellow AniTuber Eddie Hates Anime brought up to me. As well, yes, in many anime the protagonist is hit by a truck and reincarnated. Trust me, there is something much worse than that. and that is when the protagonist just falls asleep, and then wakes up in another world, like in bloody 8th Son, are you kidding me? I mean, my man was just about to eat some delicious pork ribs, and then poof, he is the 8th son to a poor noble family. But okay, what is a good way to be isekai then? Again, I think Konosuba does this quite well, as Kazuma, instead of being hit by a truck while saving a girl, he instead dies of shock when almost getting hit by a tractor in an attempt to save a girl who was not even in any danger. Again, this is great comedy and relies on the trope in order to make fun of it. That Time I Reincarnated as a Slime has a kind of generic method of being isekai'd, with Rimuru being randomly stabbed to death and reincarnating, but at least in that case his dying rambles were the reason he became a slime, as he was saying things like "I hate pain," so was reincarnated as a slime, a creature which feels no pain. So although the method is kind of generic, it is important to the plot and world building elements, so I don't mind this form of isekaiing. But overall, most isekai don't have very good methods of isekaiing, so please, any future isekais, have some form of interesting method in which your protagonist is transported to another world. Thank you. And speaking of another world, an interesting world is essential, as nearly all isekai have the same world, being a medieval fantasy land with magical creatures, and inherently this isn't a bad setting, but they can all start to feel samey. In a show like The Hero Who Is Overly Cautious, the world is kind of generic for in-world reasons, as in that show there are loads of MMO-ish worlds, but in most series this setting is kind of boring. And again, my favourite isekai Konosuba remedies this trope a bit by having its fantasy world be purposely boring, such as elves wearing fake ears, something they seem way more in the light novel than in the anime, and also just being plain weird, with vegetables fighting back, mackerels growing in the fields and bananas living in rivers. But even Konosuba's world doesn't stand out that much compared to other isekais as well. Like every isekai, it features this bloody goddamn city. But do any isekai do this trope well? Yes, and my best example is No Game No Life. As well, in the world of No Game No Life, everything is decided by games, and this fits so well with the show as a whole. Also, there is a country of cat people who play VR FPSs, so yeah, that's a cool world. Also, Angel Beats has a cool world, and yes, it is a goddamn isekai. As well, since the world of Angel Beats allows children to have conclusions to their lives, it only makes sense to be a world mimicking a school, as it is at school that children have their formative years, and all. So yes, Angel Beats is an isekai. And the biggest offender of tropes is the overpowered main protagonist. But to explain all that, it might be better to just talk about isekai protagonists as a whole. Okay, overpowered protagonists are nothing special, even just within isekais, and can be either exciting and comedic, badass to all hell, or plain boring. And generally, those isekais with good overpowered protagonists are much better than those with boring overpowered protagonists. So how about some examples? Well, from 8th Son, Are You Kidding Me is righteous to a fault, overpowered as all hell, and everyone likes him. His only real flaw is that he gets a bit nervous or is slow on the uptake, but he basically wins everything easily and gets riches, territory and women served to him on a silver platter. The only hardship he goes through is the death of his master in like episode 2, and that rarely gets brought up at all, so yeah, he's a boring character with no flaws who never goes through any challenges. Conclusion, he is bad. Rimuru Tempest, on the other hand, is great. He may be overpowered, but he is a slime. Basically, Rimuru was reincarnated as a slime, so couldn't see, sleep or eat. I mean, eventually he gains all these abilities, but he still struggles without them for a while. He's overpowered due to his cheat level skills like Predator, but in all fairness, he did have to train with them and learn these skills to an extent, so there is some level of hardship there. Rimuru, however, is not all powerful. He uses trickery, tactics and treaties to bolster his power and takes on the last wills of those he kills, such as with the Orc Lord. He also works to honour the will of Spoiler even after Spoiler, even though it meant leaving the nation he cared for dearly for a while. He isn't as selfless and righteous as well, choosing to prioritise those things he cares for, so in that way he feels way more human than boring as well, even if he is a slime. Shin from Wise Man's Grandchild is again boring. He is good at everything and gets both the girl and companions without any issue. He never loses anything or anyone, something even well experienced, and has no real character flaws except for being a bit nervous. So we have discussed tropes, the good and the bad, and what kind of protagonist a good isekai needs, but sometimes we need to get a bit more general. So I enlisted the help of fellow AniTuber, the Heavenly Weeb, who you should all check out and subscribe to explain the greatness of what he claims to be the best isekai, Overlord, and then afterwards I'll compare that to one of my least favourite isekais, 8th Son, Are You Kidding Me, to show the overall difference in a good isekai versus a bad one. Take it away, Heavenly Weeb.
Hey guys, it's the Heavenly Weeb, and thanks for inviting me, Seth. But straight to the point, I guess. Why is Overlord a good isekai anime? I'll break it down into 3 basic points. Number 1. Overlord has an overpowered main character, And when I say this, I don't mean the generic kind where the character is usually carried by plot armor. I mean he's genuinely more powerful than almost all the characters within the series. And this could usually be a bad thing for an anime as it could ruin the entire isekai, but that leads me to my second point. There is no cliche idealism, meaning the main character doesn't follow the standard heroic ideal you would usually expect from an overpowered main character. But instead, we get this relatable series where he does everything we would do if we were in the similar situation. In this case, conquering the entire world, and that's what leads me to my third point. World building. This dark fantasy has probably the best world building as it follows the main character as he's transported into this new world that he's trying to study and learn about because he one day plans to rule it. And he does this by posing as an adventurer and sending out his subordinates to all parts of this new world. And this helps to widen the world and introduces a lot of characters with different backgrounds as Ainz, the main character, tries to use all of this knowledge to rule this new world, meaning every new aspect that the series introduces has a major impact to the plot. So yeah, Overlord is a must watch. And thanks again for having me. Peace.
Thanks a lot for that, Heavenly Weeb, and make sure to go subscribe to him. He's a great Anituber and has been a big help on his videos. Specifically, I'd recommend his video on why Overlord is the best isekai, cough cough, even though it's actually Konosuba, cough cough. So now you all know what a great isekai is like, I can compare it to Ape Son, Are You Kidding Me?, a recent isekai, and show you in great detail why the former is leagues better than the latter in so many ways. So as you've just heard, Overlord is great for its protagonist and the way it throws out the cliche of idealism, which is in stark contrast to Ape Son, Are You Kidding Me?, where the main character, well, as I said before, has no flaws and doesn't act like any normal human being, unlike Ainz. Well has an unrealistic feel of idealism and righteousness and again doesn't act like a normal person. Unlike Overlord that has a dark, expansive world, which is fully explored through Ainz, Ape Son is cliche and surface level, with no real stakes, which would be fine in a comedy, but Ape Son again doesn't have much comedy, or at least much comedy that I thought at least landed. One last pet peeve of mine when it comes to isekais is whether it needs to be an isekai. Basically, if the story functions the same way if the protagonist wasn't from our world, then there is no reason for the series to be an isekai. For example, in Konosuba, Kazuma makes money by inventing things from his world and then selling the intellectual rights. However, in Wise Man's Grandson, the extent to which Shin uses his previous knowledge of Japan is to teleport, by knowing what teleportation is from anime and manga I guess. Look, Shin is a prodigy in that show, so there could have just been a scene where he said he wanted to go somewhere, so teleported and nothing really would have changed. So isekais, make sure that being an isekai matters to your story, as otherwise what is the point? Comment of the week comes from Hadraigan, I hope I'm saying that right, anyway thanks for the support. If you have any opinions on the isekai genre, then tell me in the comment section below, and if you have a suggestion for a future video, then again the comment section is below. Make sure to subscribe to the Heavenly Weeb. He may be new to the scene, but his content is fire. Also, don't forget to check out my Twitter at SethTheS for channel updates and just general chatter, and my DMs are always open. Or my Instagram at SethTheSin_cosplay to see my cosplays or random anime merchandise. So with all that said and done, I've been Seth the Sin, the Deadly Sin of Geek, signing out. Stay safe, everyone.